Hey everyone! In this video I'm going to be discussing parallelism. To start off, it's important to remember one of the main questions we have when discussing views such as parallelism, which is, where does the mind reside? Not everyone will endorse either a physicalist or a dualist view. As we learned in the beginning of the course, Cartesian dualism fails to solve the mind-body interaction problem. Minds and bodies interact causally, and it strongly believes that our decisions lead our actions. This brings about the whole idea that the external world, wherein our bodies reside, brings out and sort of gives rise to our consciousness, which is in our mental world. However, it's hard to see how this interaction between something extended and something unextended and non-material can interact. Like, how is that possible? It's conceivable, sure, but as we learned earlier, conceivability does not necessarily entail possibility. That was shown when we were discussing Descartes' conceivability argument. We also came to understand that physicalism misses out on explaining what is known as qualia. Qualia being the instances of subjective first-person experiences. The example given for qualia was, suppose Mary has been locked in a black and white room and learns everything there is to know about color, but when she finally gets out of the room and sees a red petal, for instance, for the first time, did she learn something new? To anyone, it would feel pretty strange to say that she didn't learn anything new because she had never seen that before. It is because of many questions that arise for dualism and physicalism, wherein someone might adopt a different view, such as parallelism. Mostly associated with the really famous philosopher Leibniz, parallelism accepts Descartes' bifurcation of the world. There is the extended material substances and unextended non-material substances. Parallelists deny, however, that these two substances causally interact, and instead they suggest that minds appear to interact with the material universe only by mere appearance. Sequences of mental events and sequences of material or physical events are then said to run in parallel, hence parallelism. This may also be understood as covariation. Building off the work of another famous philosopher, Spinoza, he claims that we human beings only know the world indirectly. We know it from our ideas, which is from our minds. We do not know anything about the physical material world itself. So there exist two worlds. There's the world of extension and the world of thought. The world of extension includes all the things that you can see, touch, taste, and even what goes on in your brain, because the brain is a material thing. These things belong to the world of physical existence. The world of thought, on the other hand, includes our ideas, our first-person experiences, that sort of qualia. Ultimately, we know the physical world based on our ideas, sense impressions, and representations. The world of extension and the world of thought are parallel to one another, but again, they do not causally interact. Arguably, one of the most famous thought experiments for this view is that of the clockmaker. So pretend there is a clockmaker, and he constructs a pair of perfectly synchronized chronometers whose movements mirror one another. This is not because they're causally linked, but because the internal adjustments of each clock perfectly matches that of the other. The whole idea here leads us to discuss the main explanation for the view of parallelism. That is the explanation of God. Basically, in the beginning of time, God intervened to ensure that the mental and material sequences run in parallel to one another. This allows for the two sequences to be different from one another and not cause one another, but instead just coexist perfectly. Let us take an example of a physical event. Say, I put my hand over a candle. We can then say that the mental event is that I feel pain. The parallelist explanation for this synchronicity is basically that it was a coincidence. The parallelist believes that one happens and also the other happens, and they just both so happened to happen at the same moment. As to why this coincidence occurs, basically because God. He made sure that everything will run in parallel, like exactly two clocks. He made exactly two worlds. The world of extension, which is extended material substances, and the world of thought, which is the world of our ideas. The discussion on parallelism seems to end up as it being a brute fact of the universe. This argument essentially states the age-old adage in statistical science that correlation does not imply causation. The parallelist believes that we should accept with no further explanation that sequences of mental events covary universally with sequences of material events, because that is the way in which our first-hand experiences relate to the external world. It's good to remember that this view is not so famous amongst philosophers of mind, but it's still nonetheless interesting to discuss when neither dualism nor physicalism seem to answer all the questions correctly. So the main takeaway from parallelism is that mental events shadow but have no effect on and can make no difference to physical events. Thanks for watching and listening, and good luck on the final.